This is The Wire for 2300 Zulu, January 24th, 2025. President says routine. Information cutoff is 2200. Bottom line up front. Horrific details of Southport murders become public during sentencing trial. Disaster aid efforts increase in North Carolina. South African expropriation bill passed into law. Beginning with international events. In the United Kingdom, outrage continues following the sentencing of Southport murderer Axel Rudukabana, specifically the censorship regarding the details of the case, the arrest and imprisonment of native Britons who voiced the truth of this case months ago, and the continuing media censorship surrounding the deliberate actions that allowed the murderer to remain in Britain despite a long history of displaying his violent intentions, have been cause for concern. In South Africa, following years of societal issues, the beleaguered nation has reached another critical milestone. This morning, the highly controversial expropriation bill was signed into law, which allows the government to seize any private land they so choose and not compensate owners for it. Analysts comment. Considering the historical context of South Africa's decline, this move is being assessed by many to be a major development that will result in even more land grabs and an intensification of the genocide of white farmers throughout the nation. On the home front, in North Carolina, during President Trump's visit to the damage-stricken western region of the state, he announced that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is being deployed to assist in rebuilding roads and bridges throughout the region to supplement the efforts already undertaken by private citizens to recover from this disaster without much help from federal authorities. Trump also pledged to sign an executive order this afternoon that removed all permitting requirements for rebuilding residential homes in the disaster area, in addition to committing more substantial permanent housing solutions for affected citizens. Around the country, the release of J6 prisoners following President Trump's pardon continues, with around a dozen prisoners still having not yet been released at a few federal detention facilities. Analysts comment. Many J6 prisoners have also been immediately rearrested on state charges and are back in the custody of state authorities. Analyst comments for this wire. Generally speaking, it is exceptionally rare for a presidential election to result in such stark differences that affect the daily lives of everyday citizens. However, this effect is certainly amplified when disaster aid is in play. Now that Americans can see what is possible to do immediately with regards to disaster response in western North Carolina, Americans are asking why this response was completely impossible a few days ago, but is comparatively easy to implement now. As such, these efforts have made it all the more obvious that western North Carolina was specifically and intentionally neglected by the Biden regime. Even more poignantly, at the height of the disaster response, everyone knew that the federal government and even some state-level agencies were deliberately dragging feet and causing harm as a result. However, even knowing all of this at the time, there was absolutely zero recourse to be had with regards to accountability during the height of the crisis. This is one of the main reasons a parallel society emerged, with private, self-funded disaster relief efforts taking place alongside government, being delicate enough to avoid outright conflict or jurisdictional issues, but still getting the job done. It was this delicate balance that resulted in the most success at the time, as complaining without action and outright hostility toward federal authorities, while justified, did not solve problems. Now, in hindsight, we can see the level of malice demonstrated by the federal bureaucracy, having to tell disaster victims to hang in there and hold out a few more weeks until someone else takes office so that large-scale disaster aid can be brought in, is a bittersweet observation that North Carolinians are not likely to forget anytime soon. Administrative note. To fully understand the outrage that is present throughout Britain surrounding the Southport murders, a much more in-depth examination of the case would be helpful. One crucial aspect of the case that was deliberately censored for months are the specific and exceptionally gruesome details of the murders. Considering that the British media is doing everything they can to censor these horrific details, documenting these details is important to understand the scale of the anger the British are demonstrating. It must also be noted that at least one parent of the murdered children specifically requested that the graphic details of the attack not be shared online, as it would quote-unquote fuel hatred. Additional consideration should be noted that the attacker is specifically not mentally ill in any shape or form, with his own defense attorney, Stan Wrights of the King's Counsel, stating that, quote, "There is no psychiatric evidence before the court that could suggest that a mental disorder contributed to the defendant's actions." End quote. Consequently, the specifics of the results of the attack, as they were revealed to journalists in the courtroom during Monday's sentencing hearing, will be documented in the bibliography for this report, which can be viewed at the link below. The Southport murders, both the details of the attack itself and the societal reaction to it, have resulted in a reckoning of national proportion. Every so often, an event transpires in society that acts as a flashpoint. This attack, combined with the government censorship efforts, have likely resulted in that flashpoint being reached, to some degree. In a sense, British authorities and media are correct. The details of this attack will absolutely stir up anger. Any civilized and honorable human being, upon reading the details of this attack, would feel extreme levels of righteous anger, the likes of which modern society has never seen. Now that the truth is out, no amount of censorship will be effective in stifling the efforts needed to ensure that this crime never happens again, and that the British government will be held accountable for covering up these crimes and assisting the perpetrator to remain in the United Kingdom. This concludes The Wire. wire for 2300 Zulu, January 24th, 2025.